Hello and welcome to my channel. I'm T with Teresa H Creates, and I'm hoping that this will be a stash busting video. I was recently inspired to make some autumn themed cards because of this little guy that I made using Alicia over at Call Me Crafty Owl's sheet load of cards this month, and I thought it was adorable. It got me in the autumn mood, and so I searched through my autumn collection and I thought I would just make a set of cards and hopefully get rid of one of the partial collections that I have. And the first one that I saw was this Carta Fall Market. I will admit that I do have a stash busting card making video for Cartabella's spring market. And now I'm realizing that this is the fall market. It was purely coincidence. I did not do this on purpose. They're actually kept in completely separate bins. I guess I'm just drawn to these collections. Cartabella does have some beautiful papers. So this collection was actually picked up at I want to say it was like a crafty garage sale. There was a crafty lady in our area who was just selling some of her leftover collections, and I picked it up. So this is definitely a partial collection, but let's see what I've got. So I have some beautiful 12 by 12 papers. Not an entire set, but enough to definitely make some gorgeous, gorgeous cards. Isn't that pretty? It is so pretty. I think I have some washi tape around here too, so I'll have to pull out the washi. I used it in one of my recent videos and I need to pull it back out. And then this guy with the apples. And I think this is my absolute favorite. Those florals. That is gorgeous. And then some cut aparts. This is cute with the acorns. I've got a whole sheet that hasn't been touched of Fall Market Collection element stickers. I have enamel dots. There are chipboard accents. This has not been opened either. There is a 6x6 paper pad. It has been partially used, so I can just show you, flip through here real quick and show you what is left of this collection. So it looks like a lot of the similar sheets to the ones that I just showed you. Oh, isn't that pretty? And there's that one again that I absolutely love. Here's some little cut aparts. I think this went in here. Oh, look at the wheat. That was different. I didn't have that in the other one. Okay, so a few of the 6x6 sheets. And then there is some ephemera, but it looks like the person that I purchased this from may have actually started putting together some stuff. So again, I might have some, not just ephemera in here, but it looks like I've actually got some sheets of stuff. I've got a tag. I do have some cut aparts. She inked these up. So it looks like she was in the middle of making something, or maybe she just decided not to use these elements. I don't know. I'm hoping, though, that I can use all of these and get rid of this entire collection. It's absolutely beautiful. Nothing against it. I just have so much paper in my collection that it would be nice to clear some space for some new stuff, right? No, clear some space so that I just have more breathing room. There are some of those bins that I can't even completely close, and I end up just sticking heavier bins on top of them. So that looks like that is it with the ephemera set. Okay, let me set this aside. I like to put my ephemera in these little containers so I can keep track of all of it. Okay, so here's my thought. I'm not going to do all of this cutting with you on camera because nobody really needs to see that. I think I'm going to just kind of talk through what it is that I am going to try to accomplish, assemble some cards off camera, and then come back and assemble a few of them with you. So where are my lovely cut aparts? Here they are. So I have 12 beautiful cut aparts. I know immediately that this is going to make 12 perfect cards. In these that are empty, I'll end up making I'll do some stamps or put some ephemera in there and it'll be perfect. So easy breezy cards. Then I have all of these large sets, and I think that I'll move on to make some other cards. I really wanted to take advantage of some of my larger dies, some of my cover plate dies. So I have this guy. It looks like a sunburst. I have a few ideas about that. I think I can do it so that it's kind of got an autumn theme. This one as well. This is a hello cover plate. So it's got a border and then just says hello. I'm not sure about this one. I pulled it out. We'll see. These honeycomb ones are perfect for getting rid of small scraps. So I don't know. I also have this quilted die. And then not cover plates, but larger dies. I have this one that does the little stitched circles. So it cuts out and then, you know, you can put the little images or whatever behind it. So I thought that would be a good use. I'd be able to double up some stuff. And then I have this beautiful, it's a Tim Holtz Thinlits die, and it basically just die cuts this image straight from a piece of paper. So if I had a pattern cardstock and I cut it down to the size of my card, I could go ahead and die cut this image out, and it would leave obviously this same shape in here, and I would be able to put a piece of cardstock behind it and that would shine through. So I hope that I'm explaining that correctly. Probably not. I probably explained that the most difficult way possible. In addition to these guys, I do have some matte layers. So I did go ahead and bring in a really dark, rich chocolate brown, kind of a more of a cocoa brown. And then in my sheet load of cards, I was using this collection of Park Lane shimmers, and I'm going to continue using these up. All right, so let me start making some cuts, and then I will come back and we will assemble some cards together, and I'll show you all the different things I was able to make. All right, I'm back. Let's finish up making some cards. So the first card that I made was this little guy. I love a 3x3. In the last stash busting video that I did when I worked on the spring market, I made a lot of these little 3x3 note cards, and I don't even have any more. Those are completely gone, and they're perfect. The perfect size to attach to just a little gift. I have a ton of these pre-scored and pre-cut card bases in my stash, and I don't really use them because I make my own card bases out of a heavier cardstock. So I cut them down. I will use all those scraps. I put those in my scrap bin, and I'll do die cuts and use them to build up layers and things like that. So I have a lot of these little guys, and this was a good way to get rid of that small 6x6 paper pad that I had, because the 6x6 paper pad, all the little images are much smaller, so it was easier to use them on a smaller card. All right, let's see. Love you, pumpkin. But do I want a pumpkin? I might want a pumpkin. Let me go. I ended up making a ton of cards, and it all came together very quickly. Hope you guys are doing some stash busting too. It's nice to use the things that are already in my stash and to get them used up. I have a lot of autumn themed collections, so it's nice to get some of these partial collections used up. Let's see how we want to do this. We want to do it like this. Yeah, let's do that. Because I used that chipboard. Put this in an angle and then put this little guy right down here. There we go. All right. Let me add this to my completed cards. I'll do a big reveal at the end so you can see all of the cards that I have made. And let's move on to the next one. So I had a lot of these little cut aparts. I had a whole sheet of them, so I guess not a lot, but 12. I had 12 of them. So taking a sheet of cut aparts and cutting them apart is the first thing I do anytime I'm doing stash busting for card making, because those little cut aparts, each one of those will make a nice card. So I used some of this pattern paper. Isn't it pretty? But I really liked this little image here. I had all that shimmer cardstock, and this just makes cute little cards. These are so quick and easy. I'm going to put it at an angle. I liked angling these guys instead of matting them. And then there it is. And then traditionally I make A2 size cards. So US A2 size is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And a lot of these bases I cut so that there will be a 1/8 inch border when I have the actual card base. So about the card bases, none of my cards today are going to have card bases except for these little 3x3s. And that is because I ran out of cardstock and I didn't realize it. I did order more, but it's not here yet. So I'm basically just making a lot of card fronts, and I will add them to the bases when that comes in. Because I'm doing some stash busting, I also wanted to use some of my dies. I have a ton of dies, and I thought I needed to pull them out and use these. And using these cover plate dies is a great way to use up big pieces of cardstock. So that way, I have this one that says hello, and it cuts out this little frame with the hello in between. And so we're just going to put that right on. We have all that pretty, pretty stuff in the background. So just getting right around this border. And the cover plates are going to be typically your A2 size, so 5.5 by 4.25. So when you cut it out, it is going to cover the entire card base. All right. And get that pressed down, and then there you go. You can pop up little bits of ephemera or images. You can add another hello fall, hello autumn, anything that you want to add to the bottom. You can also add enamel dots. I thought because the pattern paper is so pretty behind it and it's really kind of busy that just the simple hello I thought was perfect. So that's kind of how I just left all of these that I made with this. And let me add them. I'm trying to keep all these guys together and I'm not seeing my little hellos. I'll just stick it right up front. Another way to use up a lot of your big pieces of cardstock when you're stash busting, if you have it, because some of them, like I said, this one wasn't just scraps. It was a lot of full sheets of paper, but it was a partial collection. I didn't have a complete collection. So I needed to use up some large pieces of 12 by 12. And so I did go ahead and die cut this little bit here. And this is the die. I believe that this might be a Tim Holtz Thinlits. I believe it might be. I've had it in my collection for quite some time, but I really, really liked this little image here. And so that's what it looks like. So the card front, I did cut from that shimmer paper, and it is the full size of a card base. So it was cut at 5.5 by 4.25. And then this sheet, I cut it at 4 by 5.25. So then I get the border all the way around. And because the gold was peeking out here, I wanted to also have the gold border. And so that's why I ended up cutting it smaller than the matte layer. All right, let's see if I have anything we can put on it. So this came from the 6x6, and you can see how the actual pattern is much, much smaller. Let's go ahead and round the corners. I ink all this up. It does have a white core, so I am inking it up. Plus, I wanted to give it kind of just a vintage feel, and I am using the Tim Holtz Distress ink in Walnut Stain. It's kind of just my go-to stain. I always have it on my desk. Let me hold this down. I'm not using a lot of my tape runner, and the reason is because shimmer papers and glitter papers, the tape can have a harder time adhering long term to that paper because of the surface. And so I don't use tape when I'm adhering to specialty papers. I always use a wet glue. See if there's anything else that we want to add. We've got this little bucket guy, but I kind of wonder if that's going to be like too much of the same. It kind of pops up. We'll do that. We'll add it. I don't like how thick this chipboard is, so I am going to go in and I'm going to separate the layers so that I get a much thinner chipboard piece. There we go. So it still has some dimension, but it's not quite as high. I'll hold this just for gluing purposes. And pop that down right there. All right, there we go. As I was cutting down these sheets, I ended up having a lot of these pieces that were left from the ends of the 12 by 12 paper when I was cutting down the card fronts. And these strips ended up being 1.5 by 4. And I had a lot of them. So I thought, you know what? I'm just going to make a nice little card out of these. I like that color. All right. So I did take some of this shimmer paper and I cut it down to 4 by 5.25. So I am going to have that 1/8 inch mat on the card base when the card bases arrive. And then let me go ahead and just kind of line them up. I wanted it to be the same width of the paper strip, but I did want it to have a little bit of space on the top and bottom. So let me kind of get these guys lined up, and now I'll get them glued down. Apologize for my hands. I've got lots of little red marks on them. So we had our washer go out this week, and I have 2 teenage girls who have a lot of laundry. and I didn't want to do the laundromat thing, and I really wasn't interested in spending money on a new washer. It wasn't properly draining. So I looked up the error code, found out what the, potential issues could be with that washer. And it sounded like it was actually the drain pump. So I either had a clog or the drain pump had gone out. It's an older machine, so I figured it was probably the drain pump, but I went ahead and searched for clogs, didn't find any. And then we were going to call somebody to come, an appliance repair person to come and replace it. But then I watched a YouTube video on how to replace a drain pump in an LG washer, and it was actually really well done. And so I was like, you know what? My love, go ahead and order that part, and I will take care of replacing it. He did end up helping me, but only because he's much better at using a lot of his tools than I am. But we got it fixed, but not without a few scratches along the way. My washer, you had to take almost the whole thing apart to get to this one little part. To replace the actual drain pump. And so we had it literally taken apart and in pieces. You had to take off the entire front panel and the top cover and everything. And there were a million screws. And I lost a screw, and we think we found it, but then we ended up with an extra screw. So I was nervous when we did a test run last night after we put it back together. I thought, oh no, something's going to shake loose and I'm going to have water everywhere. We did a test run, and it's back up and running, and it's perfect. And we saved ourselves probably several $100s in labor fees. And it really didn't take us that long. There we go. I love fall most of all. Isn't that cute? That's so cute. Okay, so another one of these cover dies that I have is this guy. I mean, and it looks like all the Sizzix, but usually Sizzix marks there, so I'm not sure what brand this is, but it is this sun die, and I really like it. And I thought, we're doing fall, so let's do some nice oranges. Okay, so what you will notice is that this guy is a full cover plate, so it is a 5.5 by 4.25 size, and that's what it should cut. However, I cut all my pattern paper and base paper for this at 4 by 5.25, so it wasn't quite large enough. You see, so I am off a little bit. I didn't want to waste all those papers that I cut, and unfortunately this was one of the last cards I did. So what I ended up doing was putting both of these pieces together, so the pattern cardstock and then the matte layer. I put them together. I put a little bit of washi on the corner to make sure that they stayed. I centered them up as much as possible on the die cut and then ran them through my machine that way. So the corresponding pieces are at least the same size, and that's really what I wanted. I just wanted to make sure that it would fit and I wouldn't have to trim up anything at the end. So I do have another matte layer here, and I just used some of that really dark chocolate brown paper that I have, and I try to line this up as much as I can, center-ish. That looks pretty good. All right, now I've got all these little pieces to put in. And the best way to do this, I find, is to just go ahead and get them inserted, and then we glue them in. And it looks like I might have this upside down. There we go. And you can tell, I can tell because of the way I cut them, so I can tell which pieces go where because they'll line up. If I had tried to put this piece down here, see it's a little bit longer. So that's why I was able to tell that went down there. Here's our little centerpiece. And here, it's a little bit of a puzzle. But this is a really cute cover plate. It makes a pretty card. And then you can start seeing how it comes together because you can see the little missing images. This blue here at the tip and that dark blue. So you can kind of start putting them together in the correct places. And there we go. Now I get to glue it all. I'm going to speed up this part so you don't have to watch me fiddle with the whole thing. There we go. See, it was pretty easy. It just takes a minute. And I by no means am trying to say you need to go out and get these cover plates or these dies. Not at all. I am just saying if you have them in your stash, this is a good way to use them. All right, and then we can add something to this, you know, some sort of sentiment. I'm just not finding anything that I love in my stash right now, so I can always add something later. Let's move on to the next one. I did try to save the two most fiddly ones for last. All right, this one does need to be inked up. Let me show you what this die looks like. This is what this die looks like, and it has the stitched circle cutouts. So not only is the image that's been cut out have the stitch circle here, but the little circles that are cut out also have the stitching on them. So I cut that matte layer, that shimmer paper, I cut that down to the full card size. So that is 5.5 by 4 1/4 A2 size. And then I cut down the pattern paper. I cut down this pattern paper to 4 by 5 1/4. Now I'm going to get it lined up on my matte layer here. That looks good. And I'm going to put a piece of mint tape to keep it in place. So when I did this, I cut a coordinating piece of pattern paper also. So I'm just going to kind of fit these in. All right. And now that I've got it all inked up, I'm going to pull out my glue and get these put down. And I am just putting them down where all these little cuts were made. And they fit right in there. There we go. 2 more. So this particular stash busting really wasn't for your paper scraps. It was for incomplete collections. All right, now I'm going to gently lift this. Now that I have all of these in place. All right. Set that aside. Let me get my foam tape because I am going to pop this up. I thought it just looked prettier popped up. So I thought this was a good idea for this one. I'm going to try not to overdo it. Hopefully this fits right in here. Oh, good. Didn't have to cut any. All right, just 2 more pieces and I'll be done. I try not to overdo it with the foam tape whenever I am popping stuff up, but also I don't want it to start, you know, collapsing over time either. Almost done. Okay, let's line this up. And pop it down. There we go. Now we've got some fantastic dimension and coordinating patterns inside there. Isn't that pretty? Fast and easy. And then you can always add a sentiment. This is too big. I really like just having maybe something that just went across here or across here. And then you can also add images in those little holes if you wanted to. For example, if I wanted to take like a pumpkin and pop it in there like this, you know, I could, which I may do. I may do that later. All right, let me clean this up and we'll take a look at all the cards that I made. I haven't counted these up, so it'll be a surprise. All right, just kind of want to get everything out of the way. All right, here is the card that I made with the cut aparts, and these are 3 by 4 cut aparts. And so here are the lovely little cards. 11, and 12. There were 12 cut aparts. So that is all 12 of those. See, and those are quick and easy. And then I'll be able to just pop these right onto my card bases as soon as my paper comes in. All right, and what do we have next? Oh, get this guy. This is where I did the little die cut sections. And I flipped it around, so there were some at the top and then some at the bottom corner. So I did 6 of those, half and half, bottom and top. But that's what that looks like. So now we've got 18 cards. If I'm counting 18 cards. Here are the hello cards. And I have one more that looks like this. Let me see if I can find it. There it is. There we go. So I did the red. This paper is so cute. It's just like a little collage paper. So that's 4 of those. It's 22 cards. And then my little sunburst cards here. All right, and that's 30. Aren't those pretty? I really like the way that those turned out. And then these guys, these were the 3 layered bits. So that is 35. And here my circle. That's pretty. I did 4 of those. And then I just had some larger pieces and ended up making, so this is a pattern paper piece, and I ended up using it just to make this guy. I had some of these larger ephemera pieces that really just, you know, needed to go down on a nice big piece of pattern paper. So that's why I did these. And I wanted to use this little fall market guy here. So we're at 45 cards. And last but not least, all my little 3x3 cards. And these are perfect for all of those little sticker ephemera bits, honestly. All the little bits of ephemera. Very cute. Oh. Sorry, these are a little bit smaller. Sorry I wasn't showing you those. I did put like enamel dots on some of these. Some of these are the stickers and some of them are the ephemera. A few of them are the little chipboard. And then there we go. There are 30 of these. So that is 75 cards from a partial 6x6 collection and 8 sheets of 12x12. Let me show you what I've got left over. These are the ephemera bits I have left over, and some of these are just mine. Most of this is from the collection though. Here's the chipboard sheet that I have. Not all of it was used, but most of it was. So that's what I have left in chipboard. Here's the sticker sheet. Here are the remaining enamel dots. And then here are the branding strips. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 from the fall market. And then this guy is completely done. And here are my scraps. This is what I had left. And I wasn't going to attempt to make anything. I guess I could have made like a little, you know, card where you line up the strips and everything. And maybe I still will. But for right now, I'm going to call it smashed. And I'm going to just add these little bits to my fall scrap bag. And that is all. So I hope that this has inspired you to pull out your cover dies and paper from your stash and to go ahead and make some fall cards or Halloween cards or Christmas cards if you've already moved on to Christmas. But so many pretty, pretty cards. All right. Thanks for spending some time with me. And until next time, bye.